Great time. And hopefully next year.
And maybe even some of us older owners is, to help us. But I'm back.
Who done stepped in the game at point blank range? Who done stepped in the game at point blank range? Who done stepped in the game? Stepped in the game. Stepped in the game.
You want to know how in the world did they do it? How did they ignore us complaining about Nintendo over and over again? And Nintendo Switch is still getting such positive traction. I'll tell you why. I'm starting to think that the vast majority of people are simply tired and fed up, and they start to see the truth. Oh, waggle, 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 waggle. We don't want that. We don't want motion controls. That's just a gimmick. Apparently, it's a 6-year-long gimmick because the Wii sold for that long, and it was market leader, clearly. What happened with all the waggle that's happening right now with VR? Oh, now IGN thinks it's not a problem. Now it's a new control scheme that immerses you into the game because the visuals match that same type of immersion. Or what about a touchscreen? I don't understand why Nintendo did this. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And by far, some of the highest grossing games of all time right now are on iOS and Android. Gee, I wonder what Nintendo was getting at. Nobody is downing iOS and Android as gaming platforms, nor is any of that gaming being called a gimmick. A lot of IGN, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, and a whole lot of other editors out there make it a point to talk about their favorite games like Hearthstone and insert tapper. At gimmick, never called gimmick, and even though by and large games on those platforms usually are, because they're hot for maybe a year and then they're gone and replaced by another game that does the exact same thing. But that isn't a gimmick. So far, we're talking about motion control, which was a gimmick when Nintendo was doing it. But now that it's happening in VR for the most part to get the best feel that you need with Vive or with Oculus, now it's not a problem to have this one control device that you use that simulates a hand. Even Rock Band is getting a similar little sleeve device that you can pretend to play guitar or whatever in front of a live virtual band. Nobody's calling that a gimmick. I wonder why. I wonder why the message suddenly changes when non-Nintendo companies do the same thing that Nintendo was criticized of doing. Oftentimes, years or a decade ahead of time, in the case of VR. Then we go to online. No problem whatsoever for Xbox Live to come out in 2002 and not only be the only true console-dedicated online experience, they had the gall, by not being market leader, to charge you $50 a year for online access. I'm a gamer, so I had no problem doing it. Nobody complained about it. People just took it on the head and say, hey, let's go. 7th generation, people tried to complain about it, those people that were fans of PS3 and the free online there. And then when PS4 came out, now it's not a problem to pay $60 a year for online. But we want to complain about Nintendo having online before we knew what the price was, before we know what's going on with the voice chat. We still don't know what's going on with the voice chat. Even after you're proven wrong and they tell you that it's going to be no more than $30 a year. In the end, anyway, for now. We don't know what the U.S. price is going to be, but if it stays the same, anywhere between $15 and $30 a year versus $60 for the other two or $50 for the other two. Now it's a problem to pay for online. Now it's a problem again to talk about waggle when there's no issue with VR. Why are we complaining about ARMS having, it's called ARMS for one, and having motion control? And then they give you an alternative by giving you the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, which comes with NSC and comes with motion control built in. So now that natural aiming is still there, you can still play Splatoon with a regular controller and no complaints. But now it's a problem because you have to pay for it. You have to pay $70 for that controller. It's just so funny how all these things are a problem when Nintendo does it. With motion control, they did it twice, and now it's a complaint. Even after we deem it as a positive thing for Oculus and Vive. I wonder why that is. Then, to make things even worse, we start talking about storage. And a couple of days ago, a firmware update came out for PS4 that finally brings it to 8th generation. The PlayStation 4 can now do what the Wii U could do in 2012. That is, add an additional external USB storage device. So you have enough storage to play these 90 gigabyte games. The Wii U could do that with 8 gigs and 32 gigs internal storage. And their games, Nintendo's own games, hardly ever amass larger than 3 gigs. I do believe that other than Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Breath of the Wild is probably the biggest internal game that Nintendo has developed with regards to file size. So I can have 30 plus games, retail, first party Nintendo games on my Wii U. But we're going to complain about the paltry 8 or 32 gigs of space in the NAND flash memory. Whereas 5 games on the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 and my 500 gigs are gone. 5 games. Now I got to start deleting stuff. But that's okay to do on a PlayStation platform. That's okay to do on an Xbox platform. But it is despicable if you decide to do that on a Nintendo platform. Even though they already gave you in 2012 up to 2 terabytes and now even over 2 terabytes now with USB external storage to the point where you could use a flash drive. Since it's reading only, you don't have to do that many writes. You can use a flash drive, and that's instant expansion for your Wii U. It took a while for Xbox One to catch up, but it eventually supported external storage. And it took 4 years for the PlayStation 4 to do it. It's just almost 4 years if you give it a couple more months here. So it's okay now for the PlayStation 4 to wait all this long to get external storage when the Wii U had it from the beginning, and it was clowned for the internal storage that it had when it was nowhere near a problem on that platform versus the other two. So these inconsistencies, these hypocritical thoughts and statements, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Down to the marketing for the platform, down to certain games showing up. Oh, well, the launch list is paltry. There's not enough releases for the launch list. Anybody remember the launch list for the PlayStation 4? I talked about this on the stream that I did about a week ago. That was, my own little independent ShadowCast or whatever. But seriously, go back to 2013 and look at the launch lineup for both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And then tell me the vast majority of those games didn't exist on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, or in some cases, Wii. Interesting. But a large group of first-party games that Nintendo is bringing for the majority of this calendar year cannot be played on any other platform except maybe Wii U. And even then, that's only one game. And there's a litany of independent titles which count for PlayStation 4, but somehow will not count for Nintendo Switch or Wii U when it had its launch of 30 plus games. And people wanted to say that launch lineup wasn't that well in 2012, but let's make videos of people lining up with PS4s that they had shipped to their office, IGN. And the only worthwhile game that you even admitted was Resogun to play during the launch period. Personally, I disagree with that because I also liked Infamous. And believe it or not, I actually like Killzone 2, even though it leaves a lot to be desired, that entire franchise, but it's still fun to play through. I just don't I don't understand why you have this amnesia when you want to talk about Nintendo's launch lineup for both Wii U and Nintendo Switch, and you have no idea, or now you don't remember how bad it was for the other two platforms. How's the launch lineup for the PS4 Pro? Oh wait, it doesn't have one. But we can shit on Nintendo Switch, a platform that is completely different, works completely different, doesn't have the storage issues that any of the platforms have, because just like Wii U, it can run directly from the media. And we're still complaining about little things that we don't even have confirmed because nobody has the specifications for it. But we're going to chase down ARM and try to figure out what we could do with these rumors. See if we can verify the rumors that were there about the Tegra. It's a custom chip, dude. Even if you did know the specs, you don't know the specs. I listed too many infernal thought processes to go into too much detail on. But I'll say this one thing. I know why you're mad. Everything that I just pointed out, a large majority of people, whether they follow me on YouTube or not, whether they follow other people on YouTube or not, are starting to pick up on the bullshit. They're starting to pick up on Altano and insert Jeff Keighley joke here, bitching about Nintendo. And they're starting to notice parallels that, hey, you know what? When Xbox fucks up anything other than the whole always online thing, which every company to include Nintendo ended up doing anyway, they get a pass. Whenever Sony fucks something up, PSN being down forever, but we want to complain about Nintendo's online platform, they get a pass. Never mind the fact that both PSN and Xbox Live are directly tied to whatever payment information you have, whereas eShop is completely segregated from the 400 Nintendo IDs that somehow magically got stolen. I kind of think that they were probably fished away. Probably not even on the Wii U. They probably got them from Miiverse.nintendo.net somehow. They were probably fished that way. But even then, if you have that account and that account information, you don't have access to the games. Because eShop is a completely different server, completely different set of information, and it requires multiple modes of authentication even after you signed into eShop. It's just ironic. Why do Sony and Microsoft get a pass for the heinous shit that they do, and Nintendo doesn't? Nintendo comes up with quote-unquote weak online, but you never hear reports about it getting hacked. Sony and Microsoft get bombed all day, and nobody bats an eye. Sony has storage issues. Nobody wants to talk about it. They just say, delete games. Or buy this hard drive or this SSD to open your PS4 and stick in there. Wii U had a solution the entire time, and you wanted to ignore it and complain about the 32 gigs. Even though you never used up 32 gigs. All the people that complained about storage on Wii U, where are you? What games did you buy to fill up your 32 gigs? None, because you probably never even played the Wii U that you bought just to say you can complain about it. Do you play games to have fun? Or to impress other people? I'm just about done with this shit. Just about done. Shout out to Mr. T for him and Terminator Juice and a couple other guys out there that started to notice this. It's a pattern. It is a huge pattern. And people are catching on to it. No longer can the press create alternative facts about Nintendo and get away with it. And Nintendo doesn't give a flying fuck. They'll just do another Nintendo Direct that completely flies in the face with a lot of their assumptions. Oh, Nintendo can't do this. Here comes a Nintendo Direct that completely flies in the face of whatever they were complaining about. And they'll continue to do this because they've learned the hard way. They've been burned by third parties and the industry altogether. And they say, fuck them. We still make money. And at the end of the day, I get my games. Greatest console manufacturer and first party in the history of the industry. Doubt them if you want. I'll be having fun.